We have lots to cover in today's video, including the latest trade talk around the NHL for the offseason. We're taking a look at the New York Rangers, recently eliminated as of last night, around the Vancouver Canucks and the Toronto Maple Leafs. One former NHL GM thinks a different player besides Mitch Marner should be the one to go. Plus, of course, as I mentioned, the Panthers punched their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final. The Oilers have a chance to do that tonight, and the Memorial Cup is also being handed out tonight as the final game goes this evening in Saginaw. A lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to cover in today's video. Of course, we had a big win last night between the Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. Of course, Game 6 was in Florida, and the Panthers punched their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final for the second consecutive year, defeating the New York Rangers last night in Game number 6. The Rangers continued to struggle to generate much offensively. Bobrovsky was good when needed, but overall, Igor Shesterkin was probably the better goalie. He had a lot more work and certainly played a much bigger role in trying to keep the Rangers in it. By far the Rangers' best player, not even close in this series. Probably in the entire playoffs, to be completely honest. Igor was phenomenal. Certainly, like I said, to get some big goals from some key players last night. Sam Bennett, Vladimir Tarasenko with the technically the go-ahead goal, and of course the final one and the coffin here to put the Rangers out. Of course, Jacob Trouba to me was a major liability for the Rangers last night. I know on the Bennett goal, he went for the big hit instead of playing his man, and the guy he went to hit didn't even have the puck. So if he would have connected, it would have been a big-time interference penalty. At least it should have been. To me, he's become a defensive liability. Was not really good in these playoffs at all, in my opinion. I know some Rangers fans might disagree with me and they might come at me. I know he's the recipient this year of the Mark Messier Leadership Award, which is completely, I guess, irrelevant to his play on the ice. But to me, he has not been good. That contract is looking horrendous, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in the next segment. Of course, you know, so the Florida Panthers go on, like I said, to win and punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final. They're going to, of course, have to wait and see who they will play. Edmonton plays Dallas tonight in Game 6. One thing that's been a little bit, I guess, interesting, but I don't think there's any kind of, you know, direct relation here per se, but there is a direct parallel between these two series. It seems like when Florida wins, Edmonton wins. When the Rangers win, Dallas wins. So the Eastern series went Florida, New York, New York, Florida, 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 and then of course the Western series has gone Edmonton, Dallas, Dallas, Edmonton, Edmonton. Will Edmonton fill in that final slot tonight and have both series take the exact same pattern? Time will tell as the series shifts to Oil Country tonight. I know the Oilers are a team that has a really good record when they're closing out series, so this could be, for this group at least, the first time to the Stanley Cup Final. They did have one other conference final appearance, but obviously did not win a number of years back. So we'll see what happens. Game 6 goes shortly. It's about half an hour, 40 minutes to game time as I record this video. So by the time the game, the video hits YouTube, this game will already be underway. The Memorial Cup Final goes tonight as well. So that should be fun and interesting. I'll certainly try to watch a little bit of that in between watching the Oilers and the Dallas Stars. The host Saginaw Spirit will do battle with the London Knights. The London Knights have been the most dominant team and favorite team in this tournament. Of course, we saw the Moose Jaw Warriors, the Western champions, be eliminated, and of course the Drummondville Voltigeurs team from the Quebec League, who were the Quebec League champions, both be eliminated in this battle of champions for the ultimate supremacy in Canadian junior hockey. Saginaw, the host team, of course, lost out to the London Knights, and I believe it was the league semifinal. So they've played each other a lot. I believe it's 12 times this year. So you're going to see lots of great players on display, some already top-notch prospects and some that are going to be drafted in the 24 NHL draft. If you haven't had a chance to watch this, I know in Canada it's on TSN. I'm not sure if it's on a U.S. network or not, but if you're looking to watch some the 2024 top prospects, some of them are in this game. On the London Knights side, you've got Sam Dickinson, big left shot defenseman, 6'3", 200 pounds, expected to go anywhere from, I've seen him ranked anywhere from 3rd to like 7th, 8th, 9th, like in that range, bound to be top 10, most likely. They've also got Oliver Bonk and Easton Cowan, top prospects. Bonk went to the Flyers last year. Cowan to the Leafs, and he's had a major, significant development and boost in his play this year. That Cowan pick, which was a bit of a surprise when the Leafs took him, has turned out to be a real good pick so far. In Saginaw, you're going to get some other types of prospects. You get Zane Parekh, the top defenseman on that team. Really just a phenomenal offensive D. A little bit of there's a few defensive flaws in his game for sure, but just a very dynamic, smooth skating and offensive gifted defenseman. Put up 90 points in the regular season this year. He's expected to likely be a top 10 pick as well. Michael Misa is on this team, somebody with exceptional status who's going to be a top pick in an upcoming draft. You got Jorian Donovan, one of the top D prospects for the Senators, and Owen Beck, who was traded to Saginaw, one of the top prospects as a centerman for the Montreal Canadiens. So all kinds of great future NHL players in this game. If you want to have a chance, check it out. I highly recommend you do. And even if you missed the game, you might be able to catch it on a replay or whatnot. So certainly check it out if you are able to. As I mentioned, some more fallout, of course, from the Rangers being eliminated. They're kind of one of the hotter topics in today's video and today's news cycle. We did get word as well from Kevin Weeks, NHL Insider, suggesting that Rangers goalie coach Benoit Allred, who's been with the Rangers for just over 20 years, is going to be scaling things back. He's 60 years old now. He's not retiring completely, but he is kind of, I would call it, sounds like semi-retirement, where he's not going to be like a day-to-day person on the ice and working with the goalies as much as he used to. He'll still lead and run the goalie department as the director of goaltender development, but he won't be the day-to-day goalie coach. So he is going to lead and help the Rangers find that next goalie coach, but he's had so much success working with goalies, not only Igor Shesterkin, but even Henrik Lundqvist. The Rangers have been extremely blessed. He's worked through a number of coaches. There's a reason why he stayed and has never really been asked to leave, or the Rangers have never parted ways with him because he's so good at what he does. Before the 20 years in the Rangers organization, he did have a brief stint with the Montreal Canadiens, then went on to work with the Coyotes for, I think it was 6 or 7 years, and then has been 20 years now with the Rangers. So that will be a big blow, but at the same time, like I said, he's still going to be involved and still be working with the goalie coaches and consulting. So matter of time before he fully retires, but hard to say exactly what kind of timeline and winding down period he sees himself having. Of course, with the Rangers as well, there's a lot of fans right now seem to be screaming for Jacob Trouba to be gone. They've had a lot of frustration with him. I know they enjoy some of the big hits, but I think the bulk of what I've seen on social media in the last, well, not even 24 hours, really, probably say 16 to 20 hours, is Rangers fans reacting that Trouba was unfortunately a defensive liability in these playoffs, was a big part of why a lot of the goals happened against them the way they did, and then they're screaming for either a trade or a buyout. Now, he does have a modified no trade. He did have a full trade protection in his contract before. That 7-year deal he signed after getting traded from the Winnipeg Jets as a restricted free agent is now down to 2 years left at $8 million for a cap hit. If you did do a buyout, I mean, to me that's a tough sell to ownership and in the locker room. As much as the fans are frustrated, it does sound like the team and he's well respected and well liked, and just not that winning that leadership award for Mark Messier is anything or everything, but to go from being kind of heralded as being one of the best leaders in the game to being bought out right after just seems like quite a twist of fate and seems like quite a change, and I just don't know that I see that coming. I mean, from a cap perspective, if they could get out of the Trouba contract, it would be phenomenal for them. I mean, obviously trading him is probably better if you can. I know, he worked his way to New York. I mean, he put the Jets in a real bind as to where he would go to because he was a restricted free agent. Pulled the same sort of stunt that you saw with a Matthew Tkachuk, when they, even though they're not UFAs, the RFAs have learned how to gain the leverage and they'll only sign with certain teams where they're willing to go. He wanted to go to New York. Obviously his wife was there as well. She's I believe a medical professional, so that's what they want it to be. So he worked his way there, got the big contract, $56 million over 7 years, and he was a 50-point defenseman in Winnipeg the year before all this went down. Winnipeg knew that he likely wasn't going to stay, that he wanted to, to get back to closer to home and be where he wanted to be. And, they were kind of in a bind. I thought they did okay considering, but that contract has been a problem for them, in my opinion, really ever since. I thought it was a little bit rich at the time, but it's like, well, but at the same time, if he can continue to be a 50-point defenseman, it'll age well, and as the cap goes up, in fact, it'll be really good. Not only will it not be bad, it'll be really good. But the cap has not risen to the level we expected. Didn't really envision a pandemic in there. And at the same time, the production has been nowhere near what he did that year. He's been nowhere near 50-point defenseman. And his defensive game has gotten gradually worse. So the way his contract would work if he did buy it out would be the next 2 years that he has left, instead of having an $8 million cap hit, it would drop from 8 to 4. So he'd get a $4 million savings in cap space. Then he'd have 2 additional years tacked on at $2 million apiece. So there's pros and cons. Really, if you think about it, $4 million savings is good. That's half. You'd be better off trying to trade him and retain 50%. And another team could have him at $4 million. To me, that would make more sense. Then you don't have those extra 2 years at $2 million on your books. I'm not sure that the Rangers would go down that road. I know fans are frustrated right now. I don't blame them. To get as far as they did and be the President's Trophy winners, a lot of people thought this season had the vibes of '94. I kind of did too. I was starting to pick up on that. But as the playoffs went along, I lost my confidence in the fact that they could go all the way. But I really thought going into this Florida series that maybe they could. I thought that Igor might be able to be the difference. And he was the difference why they went as far as they did. There's no doubt. But, the defensive play was weird at times, and it's hard to explain. But I've seen Trouba and Lindgren sometimes doing a switch, and it didn't make sense. They're both on their offside. And then, of course, like I said, there was a few times when Trouba's going for the big hit, and he missed, and it just left glaring open attackers coming out the net. I don't know, inexcusable in my opinion on how he's played. But I don't know that the Rangers will go for a buyout. I know, like I said, I see a lot of people talking about it. Just don't know that it's going to happen. We'll have to see what happens. I'm personally not certain that the Rangers will explore buying out or trading him at all. I don't know that the team feels the same way that the fan base seems to. And I know the fan base, it's not even everybody, obviously. And the Rangers fan base is pretty large, and I've seen a lot of people upset with his play. But I don't know that it's been... hard to say just how widespread it is. So let me know your thoughts on Trouba's play throughout the playoffs. Do you think he should be bought out? Do you think they should entertain a trade and do everything they can to move on from this contract? Because it's certainly proven to be problematic. The decor just kind of showed as a whole not good enough. They definitely need to revamp it a bit for sure if they want to go all the way. They've still got some of their key forwards that are... the Rangers kind of went through a different way of rebuilding this team. They've still got, Panarin's got a couple of years left. Kreider's got a couple of years left. Mika's a little bit more term. But a lot of their top guys are getting older. They have obviously some younger players, but as long as Igor Shesterkin's there, they'll have a window. But this team could change a lot in the next 2 or 3 years, and they got to find a way to win, or the window could close. Igor Shesterkin obviously not far away from needing a contract extension himself, and there's some rumblings out there that he might be looking for the biggest contract in goaltending history, because he's for the most part, you could argue that he's earned it. So when he looks across the ice and sees what Sergei Bobrovsky's getting paid, and he's out playing him, he's got an argument there. And obviously it's another argument for moving on from Trouba, is to free up the money to pay Igor. The last thing you want to need is that goaltender not sticking around. So we'll see. There's going to be an interesting team to see the fallout of the President's Trophy winners falling here in the conference finals. I'm sure there'll be lots of talk around them here in the coming days and weeks getting into the draft and free agency. In Vancouver, we know that they've had their eyes on adding another big-time scorer. They have obviously a lot of expiring contracts, so they do have a lot of flexibility. At the same time, it's not like they have tons of money they can go out and spend because they have a lot of pieces they need to look after. But like I said, they have flexibility in who comes back. A lot of expiring deals. They were one of the teams that were in on Jake Guentzel at the trade deadline. Of course, with all the Pittsburgh connections, makes sense why they'd be interested in this player, considering how well they know him and how familiar they are and just how effective he can be. And he's proven it again in Carolina that, you know, his play, it was nothing to do with him playing with Sidney Crosby. He can be very much productive on his own. He was a great compliment for Sid. And yeah, obviously playing with good players do make an impact, but you know, obviously, like I said, he continued that without him, and I'm sure he can continue to do so. But there was a lot of talk that if he was available, that he was going to be a top target for the Canucks this offseason. It's not looking like that's going to be an option. The latest reports indicate that Guentzel and the Hurricanes are very much interested both in figuring out an extension. He was quite happy there. They obviously spent a lot to get him, and they're going to do everything they can to sign him. If for some reason things are not working out, it's believed that his preference is to stay stateside. That's early reports. Things can always change, but I think the Vancouver Canucks probably have a better idea now that it's likely not going to be something that's available, and they're likely going to turn their attention to elsewhere if they're going to be looking at any kind of top six wingers that might be available. One not too far away in Western Canada, Nikolai Ehlers in Winnipeg. Ehlers very much likely expected to be dealt. There's certainly a number of teams that we've heard that would be, kind of interested to see where that goes and might be one of the teams to look to acquire him. The Jets are going to need some help on the blue line. There's no doubt. They're looking to turn things over there a little bit as well. Brendan Dillon probably not coming back. Nate Schmitz might be bought out, might not return. I know Pionka struggled. So as much as they've been a really good defensive team, they're going to have some turnover there. And any kind of trade, I would suspect they'd want a really top four defenseman coming back. But I'm not sure Vancouver can do that. I mean, they could look to trade Philip Hronek if they don't sign him. I mean, word is he's looking for an $8 million deal. But again, the Canucks certainly want to try to keep him. Quinn Hughes really likes him. They work well together. And I think, they obviously want to try to make it work. But they also want to try to keep Zadorov. And he's going to be expensive now after his strong play. So it's tough to say what happens. But Vancouver, to get Ehlers, maybe they would offer them another winger that the Jets could get a little bit younger, a little bit cheaper. Maybe a guy like Hoglander, Podkolzin, something to that effect. Maybe they offer one of those guys in that type of a trade. Because besides it being Philip Hronek, I don't really see them having a defenseman there that would intrigue the Jets at all. So it boils down to what Winnipeg really wants. And if they do want to get a top D and other teams are offering that, then Vancouver probably won't have a great chance of getting Ehlers. I mentioned before the possibility of maybe like if Ottawa is going to move Chychrun, maybe Chychrun for Ehlers could work. You look around some other teams too that have been linked to, and they would have a defenseman available too. So we'll see. It depends on what Winnipeg's asking price turns out to be, but do expect Ehlers to be somebody here linked to the Canucks leading into the draft and the trade season here. And in Toronto, we've talked a lot about Mitch Marner, and everybody seems to be convinced that Marner needs to go, and that's how the Leafs need to kind of reconstruct their team, change up the roster construction, free up some cap space, and kind of have this team kind of remade here. And that very well may end up being what happens, but there's been numerous other reporters and analysts out there talking about what they think should happen instead. Like I got a video out earlier today looking at reports from John Shannon, longtime Sportsnet analyst, who he was saying he thought they should keep Marner and trade Morgan Riley. Now, there's another report I see from a former NHL general manager, and that's Doug McLean, who appeared on the Nick Kypreos show with Real Kipper and Bourne, and he was asked by Nick Kypreos what he would do, being a former GM. How would you handle this Marner situation? Would you try to move him? And he said that what he would do instead is that he would try to do everything he could to convince John Tavares to waive his no-move clause and to move JT instead. And that he feels that Berube would probably want to hang on to Marner. Obviously he is not a one-dimensional player. Yes, he makes a lot of money, but if you wouldn't have brought in Tavares, And I've been saying this the whole time John Tavares has been there. It's not that Tavares is not a good player, but I just really don't think he's what they needed. And if they wouldn't have tied up all that money in a fourth big-time forward, they could have had more money to invest in goaltending and other defense to make the rest of the team more balanced and stronger, and might have had more playoff success by this point. But they didn't. They saw the big free agent forward, once in a lifetime, hometown boy, overpaid him. The contract was a problem from the get-go, in my opinion. He's been a good player the whole time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he hasn't been productive. I'm not saying he hasn't been a good player for them, but he's not been an $11 million player. His first season was his best season there, and it's been tragic, kind of slowly going down since then. And I don't want to hear fans saying, well, San Jose offered him $15 million. He took less to come here. That's not the point. I don't care what other teams offered. He's not been an $11 million player the entire time he's been a Leaf, and he's not the kind of player, in my opinion, that they needed to get. They should have invested that money elsewhere. And if they would have done that, I don't know that everybody would be bitching about Mitch Marner right now and how much money he's making, because they'd only have 3 players in that boat instead of 4. Wouldn't be quite so much money. They could have another top-paid defenseman, maybe more money in goaltending, and it'd be a better balanced team. Maybe we wouldn't be having these conversations because they would have had more success in the playoffs. It's hard to say. I mean, everybody thought the Islanders were going to sink after he left. They didn't. They got better. I'm not saying that he was weighing them down, but it just goes to show that it's all about the team. It's not about one guy. In Doug MacLean's opinion, they should talk to Tavares about waiving that no-move clause and, not trying to force him out and get rid of him. Buying him out will do no good as well. Don't even think about a buyout, because the way his contract is structured, they will get no cap relief. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But he recommends they talk to him and say, listen, we really need to do this. It's what's best for the team. Is there any way we can find a place for you to go and for you to waive? Set you up in a good spot that you're happy, you got a chance to win. Maybe they eat a little bit of money instead of getting the $11 million in cap space back. Maybe they retain, $3 million and they get $8 million back or something like that. And they just move him for a future-based prospect or something, or they do get a good defenseman or something like that. They balance things out. I'm not sure if you look around the league. I don't know. I haven't done the research to say where's a great John Tavares trade. I don't know that there is one that's perfect. I don't know if there's a team that he would be willing to go to. But in all honesty, I didn't agree with what John Shannon said. I would move Marner over Riley, but at the same time, I think if you could move on from the Tavares contract, it solves a lot of problems. And it's only 1 year left, right? That's the other thing here with the Leafs. They need to be careful with the Marner trade because it is only 1 more year of John Tavares. And they don't have to bring Tavares back at all. And maybe they consider it if he's willing to sign cheap, but it's hard to say, right? You got to tread carefully here. Marner is a really good player. Has he struggled in the playoffs? He hasn't figured that out yet. He's had a lot of opportunities to. But the last thing they want to see is him figure it out somewhere else. So we'll have to see what happens. But if you're a GM, do you agree with Doug MacLean's way of thinking? Do you do everything you can to move Tavares rather than, pull the trigger on a Marner deal? Let me know your thoughts on everything discussed here today down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.